Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties. This is episode 25, I believe, which is good. We're at 25 episodes for the year. Now, I was going to hope to have our intro coming in here, but I haven't quite finished the edits on that. But this week, we've got Austin joining us back again in Sydney,
Hello.
Lee over in WA,
Hello.
Tim over in Victoria,
Hey,
and myself here in Canberra. So today we're going to be talking basically about the Syrian refugee crisis. And well, it's been 2 years since Abbott came into power, and I suppose we can talk about how that's been working out for the last 2 years as our first topic. So come on, guys, what are the feels on Mr. Abbott?
Fairly right wing for a Labour government, but big government all around.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Look, I'll open up with probably what people will say is unreasonable fairness from myself. I think repealing the carbon tax was overall a good thing, and I
Yeah.
think they should be not criticized. I think they should be congratulated on that.
Yeah,
and
that's one thing.
they got rid of the mining tax.
Yes, and
Yep.
the mining tax, they got rid of that too.
They stopped the boats, which, regardless of what your opinion is on that, they said that they would stop the boats, and they did. So you can give them a tick for following through on that.
True.
True. Okay. I'm skeptical on whether the boats have actually stopped, because what's actually stopped is the flow of information about the boats.
Mm.
Like, it's now an operational security matter, and we don't really know what's going on there. But you're right. We should probably give them some sort of credit for that. I'm willing to give a partial credit, but if you want to give like full blown, go for it. But I think it says something about the government that we're struggling to find things to say that they did well on.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was a coalition MP here, they would probably say, well, the Senate makes it hard. And
Well,
I mean, it's hard.
That's
It's hard.
the job of the Senate. The Senate
Yeah.
is there as a House of Review. It is
Sure.
meant to represent. And it's far more representative than the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Mostly
And
because
the-
most
Yeah,
of the
and
House-
I mean that it is true. I mean, it is true that it is difficult, and I suppose unusually difficult. I mean, I can't it's been a while since we have this many crossbenchers, but I would still say that it's that it is a big problem that there's still very little that you can point to and say the government has done this.
But John Howard had a difficult Senate in his first term. He had to deal with the
That's true.
Democrats, Brian Harradine,
Al Holston.
yeah, there was a whole, and he got frustrated with workplace reform. So it's not all of a sudden the Senate's feral. I mean, there's
No.
always been difficult Senates.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that's true, but I think just the combination, you've got essentially rather than having the Greens and then a couple of independents, you've essentially got 7 independents. Like you've got so many different people, and people like Jackie Lambie who just genuinely seem like they just don't want to play ball at all. Like they just don't give a crap about what their reputation is or whatever. They're just going to be hard to
She
deal
wants
with.
to always vote for more government.
Yeah,
She does, and it's interesting. So Jackie Lambie Jackie Lambie has been one of the more predictable people that have been installed in there. I mean, she's predictably
anti-government, anti-Abbott
yeah.
government.
she's anti no, but she's voted against the Abbott government on a large number of things, but on the stuff on some of the things like the boat people issue, for example, she's voted lockstep with them. She is what you would expect if you got someone straight out of Western Sydney and put them into the Senate effectively. I know she's from Tasmania, but her mentality is very. When I listen to her talk, it's very Western Sydney.
She's very I mean, what ideology would closely sum up her would be the One Nation ideology, which is protectionist big government.
National socialism.
Well, not quite National Socialism. So she doesn't quite go as far as there should be like programs to encourage a certain type of culture.
Yeah,
so
I'm joking.
Yeah.
She supports
Well, I wasn't.
she supports reconciliation, so she's sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah, so she's
bit
she's not a
schizophrenic.
she's not a yeah she's not a culture warrior.
No, that's
But
true.
she's not a culture warrior, but she is most definitely a protectionist. She is most definitely an economic nationalist. There's a whole bunch of very so there's like a large stuff that's related to nationalism that she supports, and a large bunch of stuff related to socialism that she supports, but not in a way that sort of blends the two to become National Socialism. Which is why I'm just like, look, she
No,
is
I think we
actually
can
where the
all
votes
agree that Jackie Lambie is not a Nazi. That's like, I think we can all agree on that.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
you know, I mean, like we joke about that sort of thing, but like it's interesting. Steve Horowitz from the US, he's on the Econ podcast. Like he's around in sort of libertarian circles.
Yeah, and a bleeding heart libertarian.
Yeah, yeah, and he did a thing where he basically took out like he got the Nazi party platform from 1920 and replaced all references to Germany with America, and basically comes out sounding like Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders. So yeah, there's quite a few people. Jeffrey Tucker as well. They talk about well, actually, National Socialism is actually a real thing. I'm getting sidetracked here, but just to bring that back to say that.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at that list and thought,
is a real-
I
it
hear
is-
a lot of this stuff in rhetoric from your Clive Palmers,
Yeah, I was
from
gonna say,
you know,
Clive
even some of
Palmer.
the Jackie Lambie, you know, and both on left and right. Like it's you know
Yeah.
the Greens have some of that rhetoric. So
Yeah, Clive Palmer is definitely a National Socialist.
Yeah.
The one I find interesting really is Ricky Muir. Somehow he's accidentally sort of become. Well, I say accidentally, but it could actually be his personality type. He's actually become the kind of middle, you know, sort of, I guess you could say, not consensus. Sorry, the person who can be persuaded,
yeah,
right? And if you take a look at it, he's got a very pragmatic approach, which I after he got rid of Glenn Drury, it just seemed like all of a sudden the clouds around him had like cleared, and he's getting out there and actually thinking about every issue before voting on it.
If
Now-
if the government was better at negotiating with the crossbench, they'd be able to get a lot more through. I mean,
would.
like you've just got to look at what Scott Morrison was able to achieve in immigration and also in social services, passing legislation through the crossbench.
Well, how much of it did actually pass through the crossbench? Because the immigration went through with Labor's blessing, right?
For temporary protection visas.
Yeah, even that went through with Labor's blessing. Because they
I don't
managed.
believe so.
I thought they bundled that in with the other stuff relating to what was it, the Cambodia deal? I thought that's how they got that one through. Anyway, no, never mind. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like, I mean, I think the big failure of the Abbott government is just the inability to even try and make the argument. So, I mean, I think, you know, Joe Hockey with the talk at the end of entitlement, end of the age of entitlement. I mean, stuff like that is like good, but there's just no follow up. So even when they kind of seem to stumble across some good ideas from kind of a libertarian perspective, there's no real push. There's no real argument. Like they just seem unable to actually make the case for
The first
any sort of meaningful economic reform.
The first budget, they sold it really badly, and
Well, they've sold everything really badly
yeah.
from
Yeah.
the get-go. That's been
Yeah.
the biggest failure. Is they've had a terrible marketing, and they've spent political capital on all of the wrong causes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the wrong causes.
All of the wrong. Actually, so like education reform for me is one of the big ones. So like they had this you know, the fee deregulation and what do you call it? So fee deregulation, and there was like a whole bunch of stuff revolving around higher education reform, right? And it came in part from, you know, the Gonski reform, and they'd come up with all of this productivity commission reports and everything. They basically had
higher education had nothing to do with Gonski.
okay, fine, whatever. I can't remember what the tracking on it was, but they had a whole bunch of senior bureaucrats on board. They had the think tanks on board, minus, you know, the obvious left-wing think tanks, and they basically had, you know, the big vice chancellor of ANU basically pushing the case for. Not just the one at ANU, but like the ones at all of the group of 8 universities making the case for higher education reform.
It was 39 out of 40 vice chancellors.
Yeah, 39 out of 40 vice chancellors. There you fucking go. Like, they're like the only group that was opposed to this is literally the union movement.
Yep.
Right? And yet, they let the union movement run with the narrative, right? And what was it? $100,000 degrees. That was
that was the
that was a cap.
tagline.
That was the tagline, and they managed to change public opinion. This is how bad the Liberal Party was on education. They took something that they had the enormous, like, everything that could possibly be done to get a policy across the line right behind it. You weren't going to experience pushback from the public service. You weren't going to experience pushback from the universities. You weren't going to experience pushback from like any media organization trying to push it, because you had the experts on board. You had people that could sell the policy, and they still fucked it up. You know why? Because Chris Pine wanted to pick a fight with the unions. Because he's still stuck in university mode. As far as he's concerned, he's still at which university did he go to? Uni Melb, or was it?
No, he's from South Australia.
Oh wow, this is how bad I am. I think he's a Melbourne person.
God, you're not
But-
on the ball tonight.
I'm not on the ball tonight at all. Might be
This
because
is why you should only interject with arbitrary quips and puns, which is what I do. I don't feel prepared at all. I don't make any factual statements, and I maintain my entertainment value.
And you do it from the comfort of your own bed,
Indeed.
which is even better.
Yeah, but see, I'd rather be wrong and get corrected on these things, just so I don't say them in future. But yeah, you get my point, right? He's basically stuck in uni mode.
Yeah.
And I'd say the same thing. Like, the ministers that I would say are performing are the ones that aren't playing it like it's a university politics thing, right? Like, I would say Malcolm Turnbull's performing because he's managed to neutralize the NBN issue to just, only the nerds really care about it now.
Although Conservatives are upset with him because he's not tearing apart the ABC as they'd wish.
He's picking his battles right where he should be, right? And he's done well in that portfolio. He was put into that portfolio to essentially fail, right? Because the NBN's like, we're cucking the NBN. You have to be responsible for it, etc. Like, it was made to try and kill his career. Instead, he's done something with it. The other one that I would say is performing really well is Scott Morrison.
Yeah.
And he's done it by saying, I don't fucking care. My job is pretty much to stop the boats.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, some of us say, he's a bit of a douchebag, whatever it is. Right, but he managed to do that. He did so well in that. Now he's been stuck into community services,
And he's doing well.
He's doing well. Yeah.
He got that sensible part pension reform through the Senate. We're doing a deal with the Greens.
Yeah, there you go. See, yeah. So you've got Scott Morrison. As much as I hate to say it, George Brandis is also somewhat effective. He's managed to push mandatory data retention with the blessing of Labor. I'm not entirely sold that was a hard thing to do, but at the same time, I've got to say he's managed to achieve his job as Attorney General and destroy our civil liberties.
Yeah.
In terms of increasing the size of government, the Liberal Party's been doing a great job.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
where
for
all the
sure, yeah.
victories have come.
Don't forget the tax increase that they passed, the 2% debt levy.
Yeah.
When you want to increase taxes, it's called a levy.
That's not the only thing. They also unwound Wayne Swan's project. So Wayne Swan had it set so that the tax-free threshold would go from 18,200 to 21,000, which effectively means all of us, every last Australian, right now is paying $467 more in taxes than what the 2013 projected thing was for us. Yeah.
I mean, if Tim Andrews was here, he would absolutely say Joe Hockey is the biggest dud in the government, and
Yes.
it's hard to argue against that.
Can I just say, if the Liberal Party was as much about meritocracy as they say they are, there is no reason for Joe Hockey to be in there.
Yeah.
There is no reason for Peter Dutton to be in there. There is absolutely no. There's only about like 6 people I'd say belong in that portfolio, in their portfolios. The rest of them, you could get rid of them.
Well, if you look at the best people within the Liberal Party, I'd say that they don't have cabinet positions.
Yeah,
The
I would
people-
agree with
The
that.
genuine liberals, the ones who speak out and consistently in favor of smaller government and less regulation, are not given party leadership positions.
Can I also say, as much as it hurts me to say this, Corey Bernardi actually probably should be in the cabinet.
I think Corey says a lot of good things a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Tea Party conservative. He's not a
Yeah, pretty
old
much.
school conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, he raised questions about going back into Iraq and the stripping dual nationals of their citizenship
Correct.
changes.
Correct. Which is why I said, as much as it pains me, he actually
Yeah.
belongs in the
I
cabinet.
mean, he's one of those guys that when he's good, he's actually really quite good. When he's bad,
Yeah.
he's just absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Well,
It's only social issues that
Yeah.
he's.
Oh yes. So that's why I said it pains me to say it,
Yeah.
because when it comes to social issues, I sit there going like, oh my god, my head is hurting.
Yeah. I mean, I think like just what sums up perfectly Joe Hockey's thing is like, Monday he's talking about income tax cuts, and then
Tuesday he's talking about the Republic.
yeah, like that's like you literally just couldn't do it any worse. Like that is pretty much as bad as in a government that's struggling to get its economic credentials on board, to just completely own goal yourself is just unbelievable.
And don't forget there was the debacle with the co-payment, where we're going to have a $7
Yes.
co-payment, but it's going to go into a medical research
Yeah.
future fund.
Oh.
So.
I mean, heck, I even had like people who aren't political really like saying how stupid that was. Like it's just such a clearly self-defeating purpose.
And
like,
then there was
but-
the 6 months waiting period for the dole, and that was sold as, oh, we'll just pick on, young dole bludgers, and it completely failed, that strategy.
Yeah, it completely fails because I think the way people look at welfare is like it's to help you get back up, right? When you've just been knocked down. If you're saying you get down and you got to be down for 6 months before you get back up,
yeah.
I don't think that'll resonate with people, particularly when people go like, "Hang on, you're talking about like screwing over my kids."
Yeah.
Right, my
I
kids
mean,
will
there
get-
was. I remember in the lead up to that announcement, Kevin Andrews, who was the social minister, service at the time, said the days of easy money for young Australians are over. We're not going to pay young people to sit around on the couch all day.
Yeah. See, I mean, if it was capped at 6 months or 8 months or a year, like that would make much more sense.
Yeah, I agree with the cap.
Yeah,
the
and
capping
and if you said 12 months, so if you start off saying 6 months with a bit of argy-bargy, you pushed it out to 12 to satisfy the crossbench or whatever, like you can sell that. Like that's actually workable because young people.
If it was more like Clinton's welfare reform,
Yeah.
then that would have been more sellable.
Yeah, and if you wanted to be, if you wanted to be kind, you could say, hey, we're copying this Scandinavian model, which is 48 months.
Yep.
Which would have been, I think, far more palatable.
Yep.
I think people would be much more willing to accept. Hey,
I don't think anyone would have opposed the 48-month limit. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's almost hard to believe. Well, I mean,
well,
people
48-month limit is like 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's ridiculous.
So, I mean, I think very few people would oppose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say, now, just playing the counterfactual game, one of the things that Tony Abbott has very much going for him is that he's not Kevin Rudd. And we have to remember that
Or
was
Julie
the
Gillard.
other option.
well, yes, that's true. The way the polls are going, I wouldn't rule out a leadership change before the next election. Because
I actually don't think they will change.
Is
Look,
Kevin Rudd contesting for a Liberal Party government now?
look, if there was a leadership challenge, I think I'd probably come down on the side of Tony. And it's more. It's got two reasons. Firstly, there isn't anyone actually as good as him, right? And secondly,
Morrison, you don't
or
think?
Turnbull.
I actually think Morrison is the devil incarnate, and I don't want to put him anywhere near the full levers of power. But the other thing is, if there was someone that was as good as Tony, right, at doing this PM gig, would you really want them to be the spokesman, right? Think of the rest of the Think of the rest of the cabinet, right? This person is now responsible for that clusterfuck that is effectively the rest of the cabinet.
You'd have to have a total reshuffle if you had a...
Yeah. I mean,
different
whoever,
president.
like, yeah, if there was a brand new, I would say there needs to be a massive reshuffle of
Well,
that.
that was essentially the problem with the Rudd Gillard years. Is essentially they changed the leader, but they didn't change any of the policies. They didn't change any of the cabinet. Like if Gillard had come in and purged everybody, that was like he purged half the cabinet and then actually changed the policies.
I like talking about cabinet purges.
It's a great word for it.
Or Abbott.
If only it actually ended up with people up against a wall being shot in the head, that'd be great. No, just kidding.
Okay. No, well,
Um,
I can't support that.
I'm not sure I get that.
Abbott's
What, you
got half
don't
his
support
cabinet
shooting
leaving
politicians?
it.
Come on, Austin. What kind of anarchist are you?
Anyway, speaking of people being put up against walls and getting
Yeah.
shot, let's talk about the Syrian refugee crisis, which I think is only mildly worse than the Abbott Abbott cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think this is like, I mean, really, it's hard to go past the image of the kid on the shoreline. I mean, that's going to be the image that's going to stay. I mean, whoever's got that photo is going to win dozens of prizes for it, because I think I mean, you really can't capture kind of the despair and the hopeless, or just the awfulness of the whole situation better than that photo. Like, it just crystallizes everything about it.
When I saw that photo getting posted on Facebook, it was surprisingly by conservatives who were saying, and if they take all of them, what are all these people going to do? Where's all the infrastructure for them? Where's all the housing and all of that? And I'm sitting there going like, nobody ever worried about these things when they settled Australia. Nobody worried about any of these things when they settled in Germany. Like these infrastructure and all of that develops for the population that's there.
I think the Syrian crisis is different because the boat people that were coming to Australia under Labor, it was mainly economic migrants.
Those are my favorite kind of migrants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that were
I don't see the downside here. I'm just like, we like them, economic migrants.
But they weren't they weren't the refugees that we wanted to settle here.
I don't understand.
Well, they were coming here through pretending they were refugees, which means if you're a refugee, then you get access to all this free stuff, and so that's why we had to. Okay.
Controversial opinion here. How about we create a separate visa or thingo system?
Yeah.
These economic migrants, and we could have temporarily put those people onto there. There wouldn't be any problem with the asylum.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. So, like, I mean, there's some people, particularly in one person I'm thinking of, I won't name names, but, there's one particular person in the Australian Libertarian Society group, and through sort of some of the pages he's involved in, keeps suggesting that essentially all these people coming from Syria are looking for benefits in Europe. Like, they want to move, they're ignoring all these countries that are next to them, going straight to Germany and the Scandinavia and Britain because of benefits. And my thought on that is essentially that that's not a problem with immigration. That's a problem with the welfare state. Like,
damn it, you beat me to it.
Yeah, if the issue is you're worried about people, and Andrew Bolton as another one. He cited all these statistics. No, sorry, Mark Stein, I think it was, cited all these statistics saying 4 out of every 5 imams in France are on welfare, and all these statistics saying all these Muslims are all dole bludgers, and it's like, well,
most religious people are dole bludgers. They never. This is like a thing with religion. Like, the churches don't pay these people. Well, right?
Yeah. So it's like, I look at that and think, well, that's my problem with immigration. That's the problem with the welfare state. Like, it's an observation.
We can't have immigration without dealing with the welfare state. Otherwise, it's just not going to work properly.
So the brutal reality is the welfare state actually collapses under open immigration models, and firstly, it's happened before, and secondly, it's like a well-known thing, right? Like, welfare, one of the things that welfare requires is a stable population.
Yeah.
Right, and it's because it essentially relies on being a parasite, right? It has to feed off what is currently there, right? But if you flood it, it's just like if a tick gets, bites into a vein and like a whole bunch of blood comes into it.
Your metaphor is falling apart. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't think we want to destroy the welfare state that way. I mean, that's not going to be pleasant.
I think the other thing, something I think it was Arnold Klinning, I remember talking about, maybe Brian Kaplan, I can't remember. He's talked about, like, essentially the argument is, people like, other people like them getting welfare, they're not so keen on outsiders or people who aren't like them getting welfare. So essentially, the Scandinavian nations, they all have such huge welfare states because all of them are white, all of them are monocultural, and their country's been like that for like a bazillion generations. And so there's lots of support for the welfare state. But when you have lots of immigration, when you have, to put it crudely, if you have lots of brown people coming to Australia and getting welfare, that actually undermines public support for the welfare state. So so it's not just a thing of like it's not just that the costs, the economics of it. It's also like people's attitudes towards the welfare state change when foreigners start coming in, or people who aren't like them getting welfare.
So, can I just say, the statistics on so let's focus on the asylum seekers here, because the statistics on economic migrants is actually quite positive. The vast majority of economic migrants tend to be business owners. They tend to be
I was going to say, thank you for making that point. I don't think that there's a lot of people realistically who have come to Australia with the intent of getting on our welfare system. If you look at the actual outcomes for most immigrants to Australia, I believe that it's not that they're just coming here and then getting on the dole.
Yeah. But the problem
and it's mostly because they can't. It's mostly because they can't.
So the problem under the previous government was the fact that economic migrants, they were coming through our refugee program, which keeps them on welfare, which is why that avenue needed to be stopped.
And that was going to be the second point I addressed. The major issue with people going, oh, these these asylum seekers are all on welfare. Have you actually read what the visa conditions are on asylum seekers? They can't work. They cannot work in this country. Like, it literally says they can't. Yes.
Well, that's stupid.
Yeah. So when someone says like, "Oh, these asylum seekers come here for benefits," I go like, "Well, no fucking shit, because you lock them out of the market.
That's it.
They don't have a choice. They can't start a business. Literally the only thing they can do is open up a bank account and collect welfare." Yep. Right? They can't apply for work because the visa doesn't allow them. They can't apply for a business license because their visa doesn't allow them. Right? They can't open a business account because the banks need a proper visa or a proper citizenship to do that. Oh my god. Yeah, it is ridiculous. I suggest everyone go to the immigration website and actually read the restrictions on an asylum seeker website on the asylum seeking visa. Right? Yeah. It is horrendous. They are locked out of markets completely. So anytime I hear someone say, "Oh, look at them they're all taking welfare," they're forced into it.
Yeah. So I mean,
they're often forced into black market labor, which is
even worse.
Yeah, which has been in the news this week with the 7-Eleven foreign workers being exploited.
That was slightly different. That was the 485 visa. So I made a point about this. So the 485 visa is massively popular in these black market things because what it does is it says you're only allowed to work 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? And so what happens is these people are like, I want to work more hours so I get a little bit more money. Now, the contracts that they actually sign, the 485 visa actually requires them to be paid a minimum wage, right? But no one who's on these things and gets paid less than the minimum wage is going to complain. You know why? Because if they get fired, they get deported, right? So actively, they pretty much work with the government putting a gun to their head saying, you will like it and you will accept the conditions of these companies.
And that's not unique to Australia. That happens in the US as well with their work visas as well.
Happens in a lot of the oil-producing cities as well, doesn't it? Where they'll bring in migrant workers and basically say, if you don't accept the terms,
you're out of here.
Yeah. Now, so I should also give the Abbott government credit on this because they said they were going to give visa amnesty to people who complained about, who actively had 7-Eleven or other companies, not honor the contracts and pay them appropriately. I hope that extends out as a proper rule, because victims should not be punished, right? And effectively, that's what these people who are being underpaid are. They are victims. And companies should not be able to use our immigration system to basically force people to agree with violations in their contract.
What is the purpose of visa conditions?
They're usually made by the labor unions to make it harder to replace jobs with foreigners.
Yeah. And while my sympathy does lie with generally more open borders across the board, I think the idea of just an immigration tax and a simplified visa system to me has a lot of appeal. That you shouldn't have 30 different types of visas.
I would just have
a visa that you're in Australia, and when you're in Australia, you're able to work because you're in Australia, and then maybe you have a second tier that gives you access to welfare benefits, and a third tier that lets you vote. Make it difficult to pass between those tiers, sure, but allow most people to get that first visa, which is you come here, you get a job, you're an Australian.
I would be happy with no visa system. Just you can't access welfare in the first X number of years, and if you commit a major crime, you're out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with those. Like both those models work for me.
I mean, alternatively, what I was thinking of today is...
Can we deport our prisoners to England just as like a
Yeah.
historical fuck you?
I mean, one of the things I've sort of been thinking about today, because I mean, really, like all of these are sound ideas, but it's getting political support for them is the challenging thing. And
Yep.
I mean, something that I thought about today, which might be a solution, is actually having like a bond system. So essentially, conservatives worry about all these all these people from kind of uncivilized places coming to Australia and causing trouble and being on welfare.
To Pilbara.
Yeah, well, you could do that. But the left want the left want to house all these refugees, and to their credit, like quite often they're actually willing to put them in their homes, or at least they say they're willing to put them in their homes, and the churches support them and all this. So what you could do is essentially say, well, you can have all these refugees come over and make Australian people pay a bond for their good behaviour. So essentially, you're making Australians accountable for their behaviour.
That's LDP policy.
Is it? Oh, I didn't even realise.
Yeah.
So you could say to a church, okay, you can sponsor these people. It's 30 grand a pop. After 5 years, if they've behaved themselves, you get their bond back. You get your bond back.
It's literally an expansion of. Well, no, it's not an expansion because the business visa thing actually is a fee, but it's very similar to that concept.
Yep. Because really, what you want is ethnic communities supporting their own people and taking them in and housing them and looking after them. Like rather than having welfare, you can create stronger communities by essentially allowing these people to look after each other. Because I mean, really, you don't want government looking after refugees for the exact same reason you don't want government doing anything like that. It just creates dependency. So
Or anything at all.
The two things, take the sugar off the table in terms of welfare and just get rid of these visa conditions.
Yeah. And the bond actually creates accountability because then communities look after their own and they actually have skin in the game. So if these people are misbehaving, they'll just kick them out. They will deport them rather than the Australian government deporting them.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to run over time, but
yeah.
But I guess in finishing, I just want to make the comment that the way countries treat asylum seekers, well, not just asylum seekers, but immigrants in general, is probably representative of how you should look at the power of your state. Because if that's what they can do to other people, that's what they do to you if they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a good quote.
I've heard that line already this week.
Yeah. Well, it's true, right, essentially. But anyway, so apologies for not having the theme song this week, but it will be there next week.
I just wanted to say that I had a Batman Arkham Asylum Seeker joke that I've been sitting on. I couldn't find a place to use it, so there it is. That's all.
Okay.
Wait, what was it?
That's it. I couldn't figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. There was a joke to be had there. It just you haven't quite got it yet.
Was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.